Samsung used to be the company that gave you everything Apple wouldn't. Headphone jack, expandable storage, crazy fast charging, the S Pen, IR blasters. If Apple said no, Samsung said yes. That was their identity. That was their strength. And that's why hardcore Android fans stuck around. But with the Galaxy S25 Ultra, Samsung is cutting away those differences one by one. And honestly, it's a huge mistake. Now don't get me wrong, on a technical level, the S25 Ultra is still one of the most powerful phones in the world. The display is gorgeous, the chipset is insanely fast, the cameras look amazing on paper. But none of that excuses what Samsung has done here. They've built their strongest phone yet, while removing the very things that made it special. Take the S Pen. Samsung said they removed the Bluetooth features because most people weren't using them. But that completely misses the point. Premium features aren't supposed to be for everyone, they're meant for the enthusiasts who care. That's literally why you buy the Ultra in the first place. If we're cutting features just because most people don't use them, then why even bother with 8K video? Or 120Hz refresh rates, or 100x zoom? Most people don't use those either. Should we start removing those too? Of course not, because that would be absurd. The Ultra is supposed to go above and beyond, even if it's niche. And instead of cutting, Samsung could have doubled down. Imagine an S Pen with a tiny built-in microphone for quick voice notes, or a pen that integrates with Galaxy AI to transcribe handwriting, translate on the fly, or scan text instantly. That's how you make it more valuable, not by stripping it down until it's just a glorified stylus. Then there's expandable storage. For years, the microSD slot was one of Samsung's strongest advantages. It lets you add space instantly, move files easily, or back up photos without relying on the cloud, but now it's gone. And Samsung's excuse? Most people use the cloud anyway. That sounds nice on a press release, but in reality, cloud storage isn't free. It doesn't work when you're traveling without Wi-Fi, and it locks you into monthly payments forever. That's not convenience, that's restriction. That's charging people for what used to be free. And let's break down the rest of Samsung's excuses while we're at it. They say microSD cards are slower and less reliable, but that's just outdated. Modern high-end cards are more than fast enough for 4K, even 8K video, and they're built to last for years if you buy from trusted brands. They also claim the slot takes up too much space, but mid-range and gaming phones with huge batteries still manage to fit one in. The Sony Xperia 1.6 still has a microSD slot. The Asus ROG Phone 7 Ultimate packs a 6000 mAh battery and expandable storage. Even budget devices like the Motorola Moto G Power Series or certain Xiaomi Redmi Note models include it. If those phones can do it, there's no reason a $1,300 Galaxy Ultra can't. And that leads to the real truth, the part Samsung won't say out loud. Removing expandable storage doesn't make the phone sleeker, faster, or more reliable. It just forces you to either spend hundreds more on higher storage models or lock yourself into cloud subscriptions. That's not innovation. That's not progress. That's profit. Plain and simple. And it makes Samsung look exactly like Apple, the very company they used to mock for squeezing people with the same tactics. And let's talk about the headphone jack. Samsung said they removed it to make room for bigger batteries, to improve water resistance, and to create a sleeker design. But if you look closely, none of these reasons really hold up. Samsung says it was removed to make room for bigger batteries. But plenty of phones with massive batteries still have headphone jacks. The Asus ROG Phone 7, $6,000 MAH, and a jack. Mid-range devices like the Redmi Note 12 Pro or Moto G Power with $5,000 mAh batteries also include one. The space a tiny 3.5mm port takes up is negligible compared to what's needed for a battery or other components. So this excuse doesn't make sense. They also claim it was removed to improve water resistance. That sounds noble. Who doesn't want a phone protected from spills? But other phones achieve full IP68 water resistance while keeping the headphone jack. The Sony Xperia 1.6, water resistant with a jack. The Asus ROG Phone 7, same deal. There's no inherent reason a port prevents proper sealing if the phone is designed correctly. And Samsung says removing the jack helps create a sleeker design. Sure, that seems reasonable on paper. But other premium phones with headphone jacks still look clean and elegant. Even mid-range phones with curved glass or metal frames have managed it for years. A small 3.5mm port isn't going to ruin the design. So when you break it down, these official reasons just don't hold water. The real reason? To push users toward buying wireless earbuds, namely the Galaxy Buds, which launched right after the jack disappeared. And let's be honest, those earbuds are basically AirPods knockoffs. Weaker microphones, worse sound, and sometimes awkward to fit properly. It's a profit-driven decision disguised as innovation. And then there's the charger. Samsung doesn't include the charging brick in the box anymore. Their excuse? We're saving the environment. But when you look at the reality, skipping the charger doesn't actually reduce waste or help the planet in any meaningful way. If you don't already own a compatible charger, you'll have to buy one separately. That means additional packaging, extra shipping, and production of a new charger anyway. In many cases, third-party chargers come in bigger boxes with more plastic and bubble wrap than Samsung's original charger ever did. So, rather than reducing environmental impact, the move can actually increase it. It's not about sustainability, it's about cost-cutting and pushing people to buy an accessory they would have received for free in the past. The logic of removing the charger to save the planet only works on paper, not in practice. And let's be real. The only difference is now, Samsung gets to sell the charger as a separate accessory. If they actually cared about waste, they'd design a slim, efficient charging brick that still fits neatly inside the box. Other companies have proven you can make compact GaN chargers that are faster, smaller, and run cooler than the bulky bricks of the past. There's no reason Samsung couldn't include one of those. The box for the S25 Ultra is already big enough a thinner GaN charger would slide right in without adding bulk or weight. That would be the real eco-friendly solution: one box, one phone, one compact, high-quality charger that lasts. No extra shipping, no extra packaging, no forcing customers to pay for something that should have been included. But instead, just like Apple, Samsung took the cheap route. They cut out the charger, pretended it was about sustainability, and pocketed the savings while pushing customers to spend even more. And speaking of pretending, let's talk about those fake camera rings. On the S25 Ultra, Samsung literally glued on extra rings to make the lenses look bigger than they are. No new sensors, no meaningful hardware upgrades, just cosmetic fluff designed to trick you into thinking the camera got a massive overhaul. It didn't. Meanwhile, the competition, Vivo, Xiaomi, even OnePlus, are making real moves. Bigger sensors, better optics, camera tech that looks DSLR level. Samsung, fake rings. That's not innovation, that's deception. And then there's the APK lockdown. Samsung says they're restricting side-loaded APKs to protect users from malware, and on the surface, that does sound like a legitimate concern. After all, malicious apps can cause serious problems for casual users who don't know what they're doing. But here's the thing. The way Samsung implemented this restriction seems more like an attempt to mimic Apple's security model and attract users who prioritize a locked-down ecosystem rather than a true, balanced solution. There's a smarter, more optimal way to handle this that keeps both casual users and tech enthusiasts safe. Instead of outright banning APKs, Samsung could implement clear warnings whenever someone tries to install a file from outside the Play Store. Something like, "This file comes from an external source. It may be unsafe. Proceed with caution." On top of that, an integrated malware scanner could inspect the APK before installation, highlight what permissions it requests, and flag anything suspicious. This approach accomplishes the same goal: protecting inexperienced users, without stripping advanced users of freedom, customization, or advanced tools. It's safer, smarter, and doesn't artificially funnel everyone into Samsung's App Store or subscription ecosystem. In other words, it's security without control, which is exactly what a balanced, user-friendly device should aim for. And here's the kicker. Galaxy I, the feature Samsung hyped as a game-changer, doesn't always help. In fact, sometimes it makes photos worse. You line up a shot, expecting the eye to improve it, but instead it can over-sharpen details, soften textures, or misinterpret the scene entirely. Skin tones might look unnatural, colors get blown out, and fine details in landscapes or low-light situations disappear. Essentially, the AI is trying to help, but ends up ruining the picture in some cases. The solution is simple, and it wouldn't even be hard to implement. Samsung could let users toggle scene detection on or off, choose different levels of AI processing, or even offer a full pro mode where AI never touches the image at all. On top of that, pairing the camera with a true variable aperture lens would let you control how much light hits the sensor, giving more natural depth and exposure. Partnering with a high-end camera brand like Leica, Zeiss, or Hasselblad could improve lens quality, color accuracy, and optical precision. In other words, instead of cosmetic gimmicks, like glued-on rings to make the lenses look bigger, Samsung could have made real, tangible improvements to the camera that photographers and enthusiasts would actually notice. Right now, the AI and cosmetic tweaks create inconsistent results, leaving the phone's camera far behind what it could have been. And the sad part is, it's not even working. Popular reviewers who've compared the S25 Ultra with Apple's iPhone 17 Pro Max are saying Apple's cameras are now better. More detail, more natural skin tones, better stabilization. And this is coming from people who used to give Samsung the win every single year. The tide has turned, and Samsung has no one to blame but themselves. Even the design feels like a step backwards. The Galaxy S24 Ultra had slightly curved edges. Not everyone loved it, but at least it was distinct. The S25 Ultra? Flat, generic, iPhone-looking. A $1,300 phone that looks just like Samsung's $200 A series. When your flagship blends in with your budget line, the premium stops feeling premium, and then there's the software. One UI 7, Samsung's latest interface, has clearly taken inspiration from Apple. Features like the Now bar and live notifications look sleek and polished. There's no denying that some of these design choices improve the overall feel of the phone. Mimicking Apple in terms of UI and interface isn't inherently a bad idea. After all, people like clean, intuitive designs. The problem isn't the design itself, it's consistency. Samsung has struggled to deliver timely updates that match the promise of their new interface. Users expect the latest features and optimizations to arrive promptly, but delays have been frequent. For instance, while the S24 Ultra has largely caught up with Android 15, many devices still experience staggered rollouts, leaving some users waiting months for the same functionality. That's what makes it sad. Samsung can make a polished, beautiful UI that rivals Apple's, but their inability to consistently deliver updates undermines the whole effort. A beautiful interface isn't enough if users can't reliably access the features it promises. For longtime fans, it's frustrating to see a company capable of greatness stumble simply in execution, leaving the promise of innovation unfulfilled. And don't forget the AI hype. Half the S25 Ultra launch event was just Samsung yelling "AI" over and over. Galaxy AI is the big selling point, but here's the catch. It's only free until the end of 2025. After that, subscription. So now, the features you thought came with your $1,300 phone could get locked behind another paywall. Planned obsolescence, plain and simple. Even Samsung's mid-range phones are quietly being designed to fail. Repair shops have already found fragile connectors that randomly break, causing charging problems that are nearly impossible to diagnose. That's the kind of flaw that makes budget phones frustrating and short-lived. Almost like Samsung wants you to regret not buying the Ultra. That's not innovation, that's entrapment. And here's the cruel irony. Samsung isn't even winning by trying to play Apple's game. Hardcore iPhone fans, the exact audience Samsung seems desperate to attract, aren't switching. Why would they? Apple has something Samsung can't copy. A tightly woven ecosystem that locks people into iCloud, iMessage, AirDrop, Apple Watch, MacBooks and iPads, all working seamlessly together. That interconnected world is Apple's real weapon, and Samsung will never be able to replicate it in full, because Apple controls both the hardware and the software top to bottom. Samsung still relies on Google's Android, and that means there will always be gaps. So when Samsung tries to out-Apple Apple by cutting features and simplifying designs, it doesn't come off as premium or innovative. It comes off as imitation, an imitation without the ecosystem to back it up. Meanwhile, by copying Apple and cutting the features that once made them stand apart, Samsung is alienating the Android fans who chose them specifically because they weren't Apple. The result? They can't win Apple loyalists, and they're losing their own loyalists. Trying to appeal to everyone has backfired spectacularly. The lesson is obvious. You can't become your rival, and if you abandon the very things that made your fans love you, you don't gain new ones. You just lose the ones who mattered most. So what's the solution? It's not complicated. If Samsung actually wants to surpass Apple, not just copy them, they need to double down on what Apple refuses to do. Apple will never give people monster batteries, ridiculous charging speeds, or expandable features. That's where Samsung can dominate. Start with the battery. Instead of tiny upgrades year after year, drop a $7,000 May monster in the Ultra. Pair it with true 80-120W wired charging and 40W wireless charging so it tops off in 20 minutes, not 2 hours. That alone would blow Apple away. Next, the display. Samsung already makes the best panels in the world, so prove it. Give the Ultra 144 Hz with adaptive switching down to 1 Hz to save power. Gamers will love it, everyday users will feel it, and Apple won't even come close. Then the cameras. Enough with fake rings. Give us bigger sensors across the board. A 1-inch main sensor, a high-resolution ultra-wide, and a periscope telephoto with real 10x optical zoom. Add a variable aperture, proper glass lenses, and smarter processing that doesn't over-sharpen or misinterpret scenes. That would reclaim the crown instantly. And the design. Stop blending in with iPhones and budget Samsungs. Make the Ultra look like the king of Android again. Slimmer bezels, premium materials like titanium or ceramic, and maybe even curved versus flat options so people can pick their style. Distinction matters. Samsung could also push features Apple won't touch. The Galaxy S25 Ultra technically has satellite texting thanks to Qualcomm's Snapdragon satellite. But it's not the game changer it should be. In the US, it only works if your carrier supports it. And right now, that's basically just Verizon. In Australia, Telstra is enabling Starlink texting, but again, it's limited. The hardware is there, but the execution feels half-baked and region-locked. If Samsung really wanted to lead, they would make satellite texting universal, no matter the carrier or market, and push it as the headline feature Apple refuses to embrace. Imagine traveling or hiking with no signal, and still being able to send messages anywhere in the world. That's the kind of feature that saves lives and sets Samsung apart. As for the rest, forget it. The S25 Ultra doesn't have an IR blaster, a feature Samsung fans loved on older models for controlling TVs and appliances. It may sound small, but it made your phone instantly more useful in daily life. It doesn't have expandable storage, which they killed years ago, even though it gave users freedom from cloud subscriptions and constant upgrades. It doesn't have expandable RAM either, which could supercharge multitasking for power users. And while the speakers are technically dual, they're not true front-facing with rich bass the way users have been asking for. Watching a movie or playing a game with front-facing speakers is a night and day difference. You get clear, immersive sound instead of muffled audio from the side. So once again, Samsung is stuck in the middle. They flirt with innovation, but don't go all the way. And they strip out the practical features that set them apart in the first place. If they really wanted to surpass Apple, they'd bring back bold, user-focused ideas Apple refuses to touch. Real front-facing speakers with depth, expandable storage and RAM for power users, an IR blaster for versatility, and satellite texting that works anywhere, anytime. These aren't gimmicks. They're quality-of-life upgrades that make the phone genuinely better. And they'd give Samsung a unique identity, instead of just looking like Apple's understudy. And finally, software. To Samsung's credit, Galaxy AI is one of the boldest steps they've taken in years. Features like live translation, text summarization, and advanced photo editing show that Samsung is serious about pushing smartphones into a new era. But for AL to really shine, it has to feel like a permanent upgrade, not a temporary trial. Instead of putting a paywall on Galaxy AL after 2025, Samsung could win huge points by making it fully free and deeply integrated across all their devices. And honestly, they should also bring back the things that made them unique in the first place. the full S Pen, expandable storage, the headphone jack, the charger in the box. These weren't gimmicks. They were the foundation of Samsung's identity. Bringing them back wouldn't just win back fans, it would prove that Samsung listens, that they care, that they're not just chasing trends. And if Samsung really wants to crush the iPhone 17 Pro Max, they should also consider teaming up with a world-class camera brand, like Leica, Zeiss, or Hasselblad, the way other smartphone makers have done. A partnership like that would give Samsung the kind of lens technology, color science, and optical precision that could finally eliminate the AI misinterpretation issues and push their cameras beyond Apple's. Pair that expertise with the bigger sensors, variable aperture, and glass lenses. Samsung is already capable of delivering, and the Galaxy Ultra wouldn't just compete with the iPhone anymore, it would surpass it. Apple doesn't have that kind of collaboration. Samsung could, and it would instantly re-establish them as the undisputed photography king.
That's how you lead, that's how you stand out, that's how you win. Right now, Samsung isn't leading, they're following. And when you follow, you don't get first place, you get second. And for the company that once defined Android innovation, second place isn't just sad, it's a betrayal of everything that made people believe in Samsung in the first place.